If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Blog Talk Radio.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and we've got a great show for you again this Thursday evening, March the 8th. We're going to start things off here in just a few moments with another great Coach's Corner panel. I've got two very excellent golf professionals in the wings, Peter Agazarian and, of course, John Hughes, and I'll tell you a little bit about them, for you, especially for those of you joining first time and maybe not familiar with them. And then a little bit later on in the show, I'm going to be joined after the Coach's Corner panel by my very special guest, Jeremy Hutchins. He's the owner and actually the new owner and CEO of Golf Manhattan, which is a great indoor facility in downtown Manhattan. We're going to tell you a little bit about that. But let me just remind everybody, of course, we are live every Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Central right here on blogtalkradio.com network. And best way to find us, of course, is go to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, or just type Golf Talk Live up in the search key, and you'll find us there front and center. If you can't listen live, not to worry. Just visit that link at blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, and just scroll down to the on-demand section, and you can listen to all of the shows, including tonight's, in their entirety on the recorded version. So if you can't join us live, don't worry about that. You can always visit that link. You can also listen to the show as a podcast on iTunes.com, Stitcher.com, and now this year TuneIn.com as well. And just simply, again, type in Golf Talk Live, and that will take you to the respective pages on those media platforms. Of course, I update on all social media platforms that I'm currently linked with. Facebook, and my pages there are Golf Talk Live blog, my personal page, Ted Odorico, and also the Coach's Corner page as well. I get updated there. And, of course, I update through most of the golf groups on Facebook as well. So you can get me there and find out who's going to be coming on the show and all the good information. And also LinkedIn.com under my personal name. You'll find it there as well. I post every week there. And also on Twitter, for those of you following me on Twitter. And, again, thank you for all the new followers. My handle there is Ted and Buck, CEO in capital letters. As I mentioned, I got a great, I'm very, very excited this year about Coach's Corner panel. As I was just telling one of the guests as we were sort of waiting for the show to go live, very, very excited. I get a lot of great feedback from the listeners, not just the coaches and teaching professionals that join the Coach's Corner panel each year, but many of the listeners out there that really enjoy the interaction with all of the coaches and pros that we have on the Coach's Corner panel. So brought it back again this year, and we're going to do some things a little bit differently again, as in tonight and future shows. But let me bring the guys out here. Let me just introduce them. First up, of course, is a good friend, John Hughes. He's a PGA Master Professional and now the president. I want to clarify that. I put down vice president of the North Florida PGA section. So he's now the president. And also he was the recipient in 2013 of the PGA of America's Horton Smith Award. And he's also a top 30 instructor with Golf Tips magazine. And also rounding out the panel is another good friend, Peter Agazarian, and he's both PGA and TPI teacher professional with the Traconic Golf Club. And he's also the head men's golf coach with the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts, also the founder of Northeast Golf Performance and a member of the Proponent Group. So, guys, welcome back. This is your first Coach's Corner panel of 2018.
Happy New Year, Ted. Peter.
You too, John and Ted.
That's right. You
Back
guys
together again,
first. That's right. Yeah, you guys did a lot. I think you timed it out perfect again this year. I think pretty much throughout the whole season, you guys are going to be on together, and it's good. I mean, I think sometimes professionals gel really well with one another, and you guys have obviously fit well, and we're going to have a great season this year. All right, so guys, what we're going to talk about tonight, and this is kind of the general theme, and I'm going to throw out some points here and that, and then we're going to have a discussion. A lot of people want to be able to break 90. A lot of people still struggle even to break 100, but even more, I think, try to break 90. And we're going to try and see if we can give some advice and tips on how they can do that in 30 days. Now, it's a little bit of a leap, if you will, in some cases, but we're going to see if we can give some great sound advice. I'm going to read some things out here and get you guys to sort of chime in. And John, if you don't mind, I'll start with you, and then Peter, and then I'll reverse the order. I think the overall strategy is, I think that the golfer needs to simply think a little bit differently than what they currently are, and in order to be able to reach that goal of breaking 90 without really changing a lot necessarily to the swing. There might be some changes, but without having to necessarily reinvent the wheel. And I think one of the things, John, that golfers, I think, can do as a way to maybe help a little bit, obviously on our golf courses, there's par 3s, par 4s, and par 5s. Maybe for some of our club golfers and our high handicap amateurs out there, they can maybe convert those and add an extra par. So give me an example. It might mean that they would play the par 5s as a par 6, let's say, and par 4 as a 5, and respectively 3 as a 4th. Is that a good idea, do you think, to kind of just to mentally prepare themselves? And I obviously don't mean that in a competition sense, but maybe just to not put so much pressure on them by having that sort of extra par or in their mind thinking they've got an extra stroke. What are your thoughts?
Great way. That's one way of looking at it. There's many different things that I give clients who are trying to break 90. I had 2 of them the past couple of days in a golf school setting, and one of them asked about that. And I throw out a lot of math that pertains to not only par, but the number 90 and different statistics that comprise a person who shoots 90. And when it's still pretty much the same ratio, whether as far as practicing and what you have to focus on. But what a lot of people have to realize is there's more room to move. There's more room to improve when you're going from, say, 110 to 100. There's not as much room going from 100 to 90. There's not as much room going from 90 to 80. It just gets slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. But the gist of it is it's still the same proportions based on what you need to get accomplished. And it does teeter 60% to your short game. So when you're talking about a par 5 now becoming a par 6, you may not have the distance to get to a par 5 and 2. You may not even have it in 3. But if you do look at it as a 6, I agree with you. It takes some pressure off you from trying to just beat the living you-know-what out of the ball to get it there when you know you can't. Yeah. You can make 3 solid swings, be there somewhere around the green in 4, and go ahead and make your 2-putt. And now you've made 6, and you've accomplished what I call personal par. When you do that, if you look at any logical math of 98% of the courses in the U.S. are par 72s, adding 1 to par all the way around gets you to 90. It's a really simple mathematic equation. And when you look at it that way, does it take some pressure off? It should, but at the same time, you shouldn't feel like, hey, I'm giving in here. It's not that you're giving in. You're giving into what you can do at the current moment. Until you commit to getting a little bit better at it, then that's your personal par. 1 over on everything. If you can play that consistently, there's no argument you're playing consistently. You just can't tell somebody like Peter or I or you, hey, I'm inconsistent. 18 straight bogeys, 18 straight pars. Come on, there are people out there that would kill for that.
Right. Well said. And that's the point, really. John, is, and I think you hit it right on the head. Is that's your personal par. That's something to sort of shoot for, and it does take that pressure off a little bit. I think a lot of times when people step up, especially on some of these tough courses today, and they step up and they see a short par 3, maybe they've got to clear some water or they've got to clear some sort of a hazard, and they know they've only got 3 strokes to make par. They know they're not likely going to do that. So adding that extra stroke on all the holes, as you said, to make that 90, and then obviously ultimately what they want to do is by getting one of those extra strokes off their score, automatically gets them below 90. So that's something they can shoot for. But I think that's a good point points that you raise is to sort of have that personal par, if you will, but to relieve that, to help relieve a little bit of the pressure. Peter, I want to throw it to you, and I'm going to ask you, this is sort of a 2-part area, and just get your thoughts on that as well.
Sure.
I think the idea when it comes to putting, I think people focus too much on the hole itself, and they're trying to get, super close, and obviously we want to get close, but again, for some of our higher handicappers, maybe our club golfers that aren't the best ball strikers out there, maybe sort of having a visual target, something a little bit larger than a small cup, maybe a 3-foot circle to shoot for when they're going for the green. And also, even with their chips, instead of, again, focusing on that hole, maybe chipping and trying to get it within 6 feet, giving themselves a good chance of a better chance of getting up and down. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a good idea, and is that something that you try and get, especially with some of your higher handicap golfers, to instead of focusing on the cup itself, maybe give them sort of not an intermediate target, but an alternate target to focus on, and ultimately they're going to get better results long term?
Yeah, I mean, Ted, I go even further back from that. I go back to more of what they can do or already do to make really good quality contact. And then generally, if you give them some type of context, or if the player has some type of context as to how they can make, how they personally can make very good contact, it starts to clean itself up, and then controlling distance and direction doesn't become as much of a trial and error or guessing game for the person that's standing over the ball.
Right.
It's a lot of times it's really interesting to, really discuss with people about, how they're feeling and how they're approaching and what they're thinking about over, really any particular shot, because, that's a lot of what I do is it's just open discussion. And it's, it comes a lot of times, first and foremost, comes down to contact. And at that point, when they feel better more confident about making good contact with the ball, their expectations change. And yeah, if it's something
right,
we're looking to, first of all, it's getting it on the green, and then feel confident about that. Okay, let's get it within 15 feet. Okay, great. Let's get it within, 8. Okay, and then once, it's stages. It's levels of efficiency. It's levels of expectations. But it's, it's fairly intimidating for the player to, and standing in front of someone like John or myself to, and I'm saying, okay, hit it within 3 feet, and they're just trying to make contact.
Right.
It's you have to really start at contact, and then you can move on. That's just helping people really at the club level, and that's the first and foremost thing.
Yeah, and I think really the point that I want to make, and great answer by the way, Peter. You're exactly right. Is not necessarily getting them to hit their approach shot within 3 feet. I think even going back to what John was saying, about adding that extra stroke, I think by people getting on the green and trying to maybe get their first putt and looking at it from, okay, if I want to try and break 90, if I can get myself in a position to give me 2 putts on every hole, I want to try to get that first putt within that 3 feet circle. And the same thing with the chips, not trying to put pressure on myself and trying to see if I can hole it. I mean, obviously that's great. You want to, aim obviously towards the flag in that. But again, I don't want to put pressure on myself and saying I've got to get into a tight circle around there. If it happens, great. But again, depending on the individual that you're dealing with, you want to be able to make sure they're confident executing the shots.
The people that I've seen at no matter what scoring range, they don't give themselves that break. They have an expectation of themselves that they're gonna no matter what the length putt is, they want to either make it or be within a foot. It's not.
Right.
It's generally self-imposed. I don't know, John. You feel? Have you seen that as well?
Not. I actually try to teach making it and having a smaller target. Sometimes when you have the big target and you're not as skilled as some other people, that big target becomes bigger. It's the same thing as trying to aim to a bullseye versus the dartboard. Aim to the bullseye, all the darts get on the dartboard kind of thing. So even though the expectation may be 3 feet, I will never, at any skill level, take the cup away from them. I'm dealing more with distance control. If you don't get it to the hole, how can it get in? And let's try to hit it a distance that gives it a chance to get in, yet still stays within that quote-unquote 3 feet. I see a lot of success with that, even with higher handicappers, less skilled people who don't practice as much, simply because the way the eyes and the brain work is they want to go to a smaller target, not necessarily a bigger one with a bigger margin of error. If you get a little lackadaisical or if you don't trust what little bit of skills you have, believe it or not, it's just as tough to get it in a big circle than it is a small circle.
Right, yeah, and that goes to as Peter pointed out, it goes to confidence. And you're exactly right. And that's why I wanted to sort of pose these scenarios and really, solicit some good discussion about it, because I think you're both exactly right. I mean, I think there's good to have some targets, but again, you don't want to sort of do something that's going to be detrimental to making some good contact and saying, okay, well, I know I've got 6 feet now, or I've got 3 feet, as opposed to actually going for it. I think the idea of this exercise, guys, really is just to give the folks a little bit of an alternative to not put too much pressure on themselves. And John, you raised it, and I'm going to go to you now. You already sort of led into the conversation, but I'll get you to maybe expand a little bit more. And I think this is key for a lot of our high handicap and club golfers particularly, is really for them to know their distances. And most people have a pretty good idea. They're either a right or left ball striker. They're either hitting a little bit of a draw, or they're hitting a fade or slice, or however you want to term it. But knowing the distance is going to make a huge difference in how they play. Maybe touch a little bit on that. And again, keeping in fact the theme in mind, the theme that we're trying to keep tonight is breaking 90. What are some things that we can do to get the people that are tuning into the show tonight to really understand how important distance, knowing the distance that you're hitting your clubs, can help bring those scores down to break 90?
One of the first things my father did with me was have me understand what hitting pin high meant. And there was two ways of doing it. There was one way of, hey, I flew it all the way there. And the other way was, wow, it got there. And how we talk about that now is carry distance versus total distance. If you're using technology, me with Flight Scope and other people with other ones, when you know your carry distances, you're in good shape. When you know your total distances, you're not as in good a shape, because you really can't depend on how much the release and roll of the ball is. It's totally out of your hands. So when I'm talking to anybody, I'm asking them, how far do they carry something? So one of the neat things that happens with a higher handicapper, doesn't practice as much, doesn't play as much, but they'll come for instruction, is I'll ask them what their 150 club is, and I'll let them tell me. I'll watch them hit that. I'll give them a 150-yard target on the range, no pressure. And if they're hitting it, great. 90% of the time they're hitting it much shorter than that in a carry distance. So inevitably on the course with instruction, I'll ask them, well, you're 150. Let's pull your 150 club out. And it's not the same club, or it is the same club, and they come up continually short. And I'll ask them, well, when did you hit that 150? And they mean it sincerely. They'll say, well, 3 years ago, one time on this course with the wind behind me, I hit it 155.
Right.
What you have to understand about distance, it's not an anomalistic thing. It's a consistent trend of how far you hit it. It's an average. And when you know the average carry distance, that's what you can control. If it rolls by the hole, guess what? You've hit it pin high. And there are statistics, strong statistics, that suggest that you're going to make a birdie more often when you're pin high or better. I've seen it with my mini tour players. I've seen it with some professional tour players. They're much more precise with their yardages, but when they get it to the pin or better, their chances of making a birdie, their chances of recovering for par, or even salvaging a bogey are that much better. So when it comes to knowing your yardages, you need to know them with every club, but it's probably more important to know your carry distances, because that's what you have control over, and that's where you're probably going to see most of your improvement. As you improve, you'll see the ball carry longer. It'll be higher in the air for a longer time in the air, and that's what we all get thrills about. So that's what you really have to focus on, and not focus on a one-time only thing. What is it that you do on average? Because when you know your average, it's easier to make smarter decisions on the golf course with that information.
Yeah, and that, well said, John. That's a key thing, guys, and I know, we know this being in the business, but a lot of amateurs, and John, that was a great example, because I think Peter and I can attest to it. We've heard this over the years. 2-3 years ago, I hit my club, X distance, maybe a couple of times or something, and like you say, with a stiff wind behind me or what have you. But again, they don't know that on average distance. Peter, here's another area too that I think that can probably help a little bit, and I want to get your thoughts on this, and that is taking trouble out of play. Obviously, on a golf course, we're going to be faced with all kinds of difficult challenges. It might be out of bounds, it might be water. So we want to take that possibility out by maybe laying up in some cases. Obviously, the goal here is to get rid of those really bad triple bogeys or higher on holes, which so many high handicappers fall into. What are your thoughts there about coming to holes where there might be a lot of trouble? Is it the smarter play for them? Should they be laying up more instead of trying to play some of these hero shots and going for it all the time? When does that sort of factor in, do you think?
I think it factors in all the time, no matter really what scoring range you're in. I mean, right now we're talking about breaking 90, but, if a player can go on the golf course equipped with maybe two, of their really confident yardages, and that maybe it's something inside 100 yards they feel really confident in. If it's something from, 100 to 150, whatever yardage that might be, and then playing to that yardage in general from the tee, whatever they need to hit to get to that yardage, or maybe there's a second shot and, so their third shot is the most confident yardage to the green. Whatever you need to get to whatever your most confident yardage is. I have a couple of players that, just 120 yards is just really confident. You get them out there and you drop a ball, or if I have them on TrackMan and I give them 120 yards, their body language changes. The speed at which they end up, pulling the trigger, they just get up there and they're extremely confident. And whatever you need to, if you can play a hole from that point backwards and then make your decisions based off that, it can really positively impact your scoring, just because you're not putting yourself in a place that you're saying, wow, this is how far I have. I don't feel like I have that shot, or if I feel like I'm really far from the hole, you're forcing yourself to hit, a longer club off the ground that they're not very confident in. It gets, and then never mind to put the trouble into the left, right, or in front of the green or over the green, whatever it might be. You add in those factors, it becomes almost insurmountable if they're facing a shot that they're just not confident in. So with my players, I'm just really working to help identify that confident club or that confident yardage that, I think John actually said, a couple times last year when we were on together, what's wrong with hitting, 2 clubs that go 150 or 100 if you need to go 200 yards. It's something along that lines of what John said last year, but that trouble becomes less intimidating if they're, hitting from that confident yardage or confident club.
Yeah, and sort of a follow-up, Peter, to that question is, obviously if we find ourselves in trouble, and again, I want to keep this in perspective. We're talking about our higher handicap players. Obviously, the better players are going to have a different strategy, but with our higher handicap players particularly that are looking to try and get down, to 90 or below 90, they're obviously going to get, from time to time, it's going to happen, they're going to get into trouble. What should they be looking at getting themselves back into the fairway rather than trying to, needle it through maybe a couple of trees or something? Is that the smarter play and going to give them the better opportunity or greater chance of success than trying to, play a hero shot? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, the practicality of, breaking 90 is to, bump it out into the fairway, just take whatever club you feel comfortable with and hit it out into the fairway, hit it backwards if you have to, just to get yourself back in play. And it's taking, one shot, adding one shot to your score and kind of still putting you in that line of bogey at worst. But a lot of times, what's the fun in that? I get it. You're out there having to have a good time, and you just watch, whatever LPGA or PGA Tour player pull off this amazing shot. In the back of your mind, you have that. I mean, it's real. You're saying, oh, there's that window. I can do this like this person, and that's fun.
Yeah,
I get it. I mean, but if you're really looking at your score and you want to really, that's your goal, is to break 90, or you're bumping it out into the fairway and just taking that extra shot to get yourself back in play is definitely the most practical thing to do.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right in your analogy, Peter. I think that the average player, I think, thinks exactly what you just said a minute ago, and that is, well, I saw somebody hit a shot similar to this on tour last year, and I think I can pull it off. And it is fun to try and experiment a little bit. But I think for a player that's maybe getting ready to play, sorry, go ahead.
It's not even if they think they could pull it off. They just feel like it's fun to try. Like, I
right.
mean, it's part of that is just out there having a good time, and for them, it might be just a really fun thing to do, is to try to hit a low cutting, 4-iron through maybe a 5x5 window that is just not practical. But sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. I agree. I think it is fun, and I don't have a problem in people doing that. But I think there's a pretty large group of people out there that are really have been struggling for years and wanting to get that, and maybe they've done some of that. Maybe they've tried to thread the needle, if you will, on a lot of shots, and they've had some fun, but they're now getting a little bit frustrated because they're not seeing that improvement. John, I want to jump to you now, and this is sort of in line to what your earlier question about, knowing your club's distance. But I think another component to that is also, what do you think about not hitting clubs that you're particularly confident with? Obviously we're not going to necessarily be confident with every club in the bag. Even some of the pros have their favorite clubs. What are your thoughts there? do we avoid it and wait and work with that particular club at another time, or do we just suck it up and give it our best shot regardless?
There's a happy medium in everything, but if you have to find that one club in the bag that is your confident club, why not use it? A couple of practical real-life stories that come to mind. I can remember using a sand wedge for everything I hit from 50 yards and in. It wouldn't matter if I'm 4 feet off the green or 40 yards off the green. I was confident with it. I learned to use it. I learned to do the different shots with it. I was able to get creative with it. And as I got creative and more confident, then I was willing to experiment with some other clubs. So it gave me the basis to start expanding my horizons. But then from another angle, I can't remember what year, but Johnny Bench, the Hall of Fame catcher from the Cincinnati Reds, used to host a golf show on ESPN. This is probably back in between 86 and 88. I can't recall the name of the show. And he would show some different things and have different guest people on. And one day he pulled out a club, and he says, I'm going to play this par 5 with this one club. And I want to say it was a 6 or a 7 iron. And it was a 500 and some odd yard hole. And he was just short of the green, like probably 30 yards, 20 yards maybe, after hitting this club 3 times. Used the same club to chip up and was within 3 feet, pulled his putter out, knocked it in for par. And he turned around and he says, you know, this a long time ago was my favorite club. And what I'm trying to prove to you is if you've got one club that you can hit really, really well, you can do that around the golf course, realizing that you're going to make some sacrifices in one direction, but the one thing you gain from it is not only the confidence. If you're that confident with the club, you'll be more consistent. So it's sort of a double-edged sword. Yeah, you want to be able to hit all the clubs. That takes practice. It takes training your equilibrium to balance the end of that golf club, and the longer the end of that golf club gets, the harder it is to balance it. If you've got one that you love, you're probably well in balance when you swing. Why not use it? But as you use that one, if you can find a way to get creative with it, can you knock it down? Can you hit it high? Can you hit it a little left to right? Can you hit it a little right to left? That's shot making. That's old school, which is a sort of a lost art, but necessary to gain improvement. It doesn't matter whether you're going from 100 to 90 or trying to break 70. When you can learn to get that creative with a club and have that kind of confidence in it, it bleeds throughout the rest of the club set. You just have to learn to balance the rest of the club set trying to create that skill. Yeah,
well said. You know, it reminds me, last year I had Wally Armstrong on the show as a guest, and I reminded him of a segment years and years ago that he had done on the early days of the Golf Channel, where he did something very similar to what you just described, John, where he had I believe it was a 7-iron, a pitching wedge, and a putter, and he played a par 5, 4, and par 3 respectively. And he actually ended up, after playing all 3 holes, was 1 under par. And the point he was trying to prove in that is similar to what you were trying to say is, you know, you don't necessarily have to hit it, 250 yards off the tee, but hitting clubs, the clubs that you choose, whether it be, again, 7 or your favorite clubs, hitting them consistently and solid, you can play virtually every course. Now, I want to digress a little bit because obviously at the time when he was doing that, we weren't dealing with 7,500 to 8,000 yard golf courses. So I know there's a little bit of an adjustment there probably, but I think he proved the point that, you didn't necessarily have to, hit the ball a long distance. It was a matter of hitting it consistently. And that's obviously what Johnny Bench was trying to prove as well by choosing a club that he was comfortable hitting and was obviously able to par that hole. And that's essentially what Wally did. He just had 3 clubs that he walked around with and did essentially the same thing and ended up shooting on 3 holes, 1 under. So, I think that, your point, John, of really, if you've got a favorite club or maybe even a couple of clubs in the bag, I think if you work at hitting that well and have that as your go-to club, when you're faced with whatever you might be challenged with out in the golf course, I think is certainly going to help. Pete, I want to ask you something. John had mentioned a little bit earlier about being maybe a little bit more precise, at going for the target. But when we're dealing with some of our high handicap golfers, maybe going for the pin all the time isn't necessarily, because as we know, most golf courses usually put the pins in pretty challenging areas. Is it a smart play maybe to aim for the bigger part of the green and again rely on maybe a 2-putt if our goal is to try and break 90? What are your thoughts there?
If it's practical, I would just, if they're at a yardage where they can reach a green, I'm telling them go right for the middle. Yeah. But also, it really helps if they just understand their ball flight and where to aim. I've found that people in that scoring range have more curve than most, but understanding, if they understand which way it's going to curve, they can aim a little better, so it's going to land a little more in the middle of the green. And generally speaking, at least in the Northeast, if you're in the middle of the green, you're not going to be too far from the hole. So it's more than practical if you're just looking really to lower your score at that range. It's a lot of, it makes complete sense. There's the flag. It's, up on the back right shelf or back right, little finger of the green. Then you want to hit it close, and that's how we're wired. I get it. If you're feeling really good about it, if you have a club in your hand and you're feeling great, go with it. Go for it. Never gonna discourage anybody that's standing over it feeling really confident. But if there's some uncertainty, or if you're at a yardage, that's, again, stretching you out. You're hitting 3 wood off the deck to try to make it to the green. It's probably probably more confident to dice that up into 2 parts and hit 2 pitching wedges, or whatever it might be, 2 6-irons to get to the green and feel better about it. But I would definitely say if you're in a range where you feel like you can definitely make it, middle of the green, if you get over the ball, you're feeling really confident, just go for it. And if it works out, then great. If not, you're most likely going to be somewhere right in the middle of the green, or somewhere where you have an opportunity to putt, because it really has to. I keep talking about confidence, but if you're standing over it and you're not confident, you need to make a different decision. The plan that you have in place, if you're standing over it and you're questioning it still, you need to just kind of take 2 seconds and make a different plan, because it's the plan you've made is not the right one for you.
Right, and again, I agree with you, and I think wholeheartedly it does boil down to confidence. Obviously, a player that has been playing for a number of years and knows their yardages, knows how well they hit their clubs. If they're not stretching it, as you pointed out, then by all means, I think if they're confident with the club in their hand and standing over the ball, then by all means go for it. But I agree. I think if there's a little bit of uncertainty, or particularly if there's a lot of uncertainty, then maybe scale it back, and as you said, maybe hit a couple of 6-irons, or depending on the shot, mix it up a little bit more, as John had you pointed out, John earlier had said in last season's show. Don't always pick the long club or the wood off the deck and try to go for it if you don't feel the confidence there to do it. John, what about we've talked a little bit here tonight about consistency and distance and things like that. What about another way too of maybe clubbing down and maybe scaling back to more 3/4 swings, maybe swing at 70% power, in order to keep that consistency? Is that something that you advise some clients sometimes if you know that they're, going at it full throttle and they're just not getting consistent? Do you try to encourage them to scale it back, maybe not necessarily to 70%, but maybe scale it back to a lesser percentage of their full power in order to regain some of that consistency?
Peter, I think you're going to agree with me. I do this all the time when it comes to trying to feel a difference between what you're doing now versus what you'd like to accomplish later on. From an improvement standpoint of view, from a practical application playing, sure, why not? With my clients the past couple of days, I showed them several times where they just, I'll use the term swing out of your shoes. You're trying to get more out of the club than meets the eye. You're trying to hit your career yardages, and you've got some variables that you forgot about. Wind in your face, you're in the rough, poor lie in the fairway, whatever the case may be. When you can take a little bit more club, swing in balance and under control, and make good, solid ball-to-club contact, you're probably 9 times out of 10 going to hit a great miss. And it doesn't take a lot of effort to hit a great miss as long as you do the shot you tried to swing out of your shoes. That's the biggest aha moment that I see people breaking 90 or wanting to break 90 experience. It'll be like, wow, I didn't know I could only swing 70% and still hit it as far as I do at 100%. When they can experience that aha moment on the golf course in particular, it makes it that much more valuable. I say it till I'm blue in the face. Hey, when you're trying to improve, it's not about distance. It's about getting solid ball club contact, great impact, and having it go straight. Organically, you are going to pick up distance. Now, I've said this before in other shows, but I'll say it a little bit more detailed. Mm-hmm. When you're watching a child learn to walk, and they're walking too fast, they will fall over. And the reason for it is your equilibrium is not developed. It just isn't. It's not developed to a horizon. And until it does, you cannot pick up speed. But as your equilibrium gets balanced, it will pick up speed organically. When the child falls over, we are hardwired to quarter it back. Some of the science out there right now says that if you're moving at 100 miles an hour and fall over, when you get up, you'll only move at 75. That's just the way we're hardwired. Mm-hmm. So when we become an adult, we forget about that. We're an adult. We're not an infant anymore. We don't learn that way. Totally false. We're hardwired that way. So combine the two things that I've talked about here. Biophysically, this is the way we're hardwired. And B, if you bring it down a notch and you're just that little bit more accurate with less effort, can you imagine how you could be if you consistently did this? You're just working within yourself. When the above 90 player gets that, that is one of the aha moments from a ball striking standpoint of view. And from that point on, I see significant improvement with scoring, but I see more significance in what they're doing with the golf ball and the decisions they're making, because they're still aggressive, but they're staying within themselves, within their aggression, versus trying to be someone they're not.
Yeah, well said, John. No, I agree, and that's really why I wanted to bring that point up, is because we see it time and time again, and I think a lot of people are under, and I think this is where sometimes the stats that we hear, on tour that they give out, with swing speed and club head speed, we think that these, and in some cases they are, but most cases they're not, that these guys are just, swinging for the hills. And really, they're actually swinging within themselves. Obviously, some of the younger guys have a little bit more power, but, they're not coming out of their boots. I mean, if you look like a player, players like Freddie Couples and Ernie Els, to give you an example, could generate phenomenal, especially Freddie could generate phenomenal club head speed, but yet it looked like he was barely swinging the club. And then you get a guy like, I'm trying to think of Nick Price, who had sort of a short but very quick pace swing. I'm sure if you ran them side by side, they would look entirely different on the outside, but their club head speed might not be that much different. So, I think you're exactly right in your analogy, John, is I think that you have to be able to swing within yourself, and if scaling it back a little bit is going to narrow the consistency of your ball striking, ultimately you're going to get better results. And maybe there might be instances where you can ratchet it up a little bit, but this is a problem that I see a lot with people that I've worked for, is they're trying to hit it too hard. They're trying to swing the club too fast, because thinking that, if I generate more speed, I'm going to get more distance. When in actuality, if they swing within themselves and just, swing with a fluid and balanced tempo and timing, they're going to hit it just as far, if not farther, than trying to murder it. So I like your points, and like the analogy of the toddler. I think that was a great way of making your point. Guys, we've got about maybe 10 or so minutes left, because I want to give you guys a couple of minutes to let the folks know how they can reach out if they want. We've got to put together a practice plan very quickly here, and I'm just going to highlight some things, and I just want to get each of your thoughts, what you think of this, and obviously there's going to be some modification, because not everybody has a lot of time to get out and practice. But if we're going to put a practice plan, these are areas that we want to cover: putting, chipping, pitching, bunker play. Obviously in today's game, we're working with not just irons but hybrids as well, and then also about our misses and that. So if we're going to work on our putting, and we want to, again, under the theme of trying to break 90, let's kind of go down the list fairly quickly if we can. And Peter, if you want to start off putting, what would be, I got an example here of maybe some 4-foot putts. Try to hole, maybe 50 of them a week, maybe 100 20-foot lag putts. Try to get them within that 2 to 3 foot circle. Are those some good drills to put together in a practice plan, or do you have something maybe a little different in mind?
I would definitely say that to break 90, you're looking at controlling distance. Your ability to control your balls is going to be definitely paramount, because your distance control is absolutely going to determine the target you select. So, a lot of times in that sense, I like to put, point value there. I put, basically an alignment stick just about 5 feet past the hole, and I have them work with constraints. And say, groups of 5 putts, it's, 2 points if you make it, 1 point if you get past the hole, but you don't hit the rod. And if you're short of the hole or past the rod or hit the rod, it's minus a point. And I have them work within that. And I'd let them pick the distance. It might be 30 feet. It might be 25. It might be 15, 5 feet. I don't give them that constraint, but, that's also something at times that we decipher in our private sessions. But also, that's really something in my coaching programs that we do in practice, because we have 2 hours of practice. They, stay for generally an hour of it. But we set up those types of situations where there's a constraint and a consequence. And a lot of times the people that are practicing don't make their practice or training hard enough. And they sit there with just hitting 30-footer after 30-footer, and there's no consequence to it going, 10 feet by or whatever it might be, or 10 feet short, and they're not able to regulate themselves. I mean, so if there's enough of a consequence where they can say, okay, this is a little closer to actually playing golf. It's the time they're spending, 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever it might be, is going to be, as I tell people, worth an hour and a half of just regular practice. That 20-minute session you just put in was extremely valuable, and then you can move on and potentially work on something else. I don't have the illusion that people have time. Everybody, no matter who you are, is extremely busy. And if I'm writing practice plans, it's for whatever facet they're working on, it's at 20-minute blocks, and that everything has a constraint and a consequence, and that's it. and then they can go about their day, and that's well within their attention span, because it's very well documented that people tend to start checking out right about 25 to 30 to 28 minutes in that range. And then that's just about the amount of attention they're going to give you. So that's it. 20 minutes, really concentrated, constraint, consequence. That's it.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, John. And again, I know we're not going to have time to go through all of these things, but maybe, we obviously want our players to put together some sort of a practice plan. And again, as Peter just pointed out, there's time restraints. People are busier today than maybe what they might have been 20 years ago, and I've got other commitments. So it's not always easy to get them out to the golf course to put together in that. So we want to give them, I guess, the biggest bang for the buck, and get them working on some sort of regimen. Some of the stuff they can do at home, and some of the stuff they can do, obviously, at the golf course. But we want to certainly have some sort of a practice plan, because ultimately the goal is we want them to really focus on breaking 90. So just put some thoughts together, what you think, how you want to allocate their time, on a weekly basis to try and get the most out of the practice sessions to be able to help achieve that goal.
So similarly to Peter, I'm under the absolute, not the assumption, but the absolute that no one has time. So based on that, I am given homework. I am given certain things for people to do that can either loosen their muscles and joints and have them move more freely, that can do different things for them from an impact standpoint of view based on the resources they have. But it boils down to numbers. And these are hard and fast numbers that have been around for a long, long time. The average male golfer in the U.S. shoots 98.7. That number hasn't moved too much over the past 30 years. Let's round that out to 98 and give everybody a benefit of the doubt. That number represents three real glaring statistics. You're hitting 1.9 greens in a round. You're hitting maybe 4 fairways, and you're putting 38 times. Par allows you 36, so there's 2. Take that off, that's 96. If you hit 4 more greens, which means you don't have to get up and down 4 more times, there's 6 to 8 strokes right there. And if you hit 1 more fairway, not 2, not 3, just 1 more fairway, the likelihood of you hitting an extra green on top of that is there. Those are the numbers. And when I get someone to understand the numbers, now they start understanding where the relevant time, say, split into an hour, how they should be practicing. It is 4-foot putts. Can you drain 3 or 4 in a row? Very much like Peter, here's a constraint, here's the goal, here's the scrimmage.
Yeah.
Challenge yourself. Distance control with putting. If you did nothing but those 2 things, learn how to hit a 4-foot putt in 90% of the time and be able to control your putts, you're golden. You're off the green 16 times. Most of the time you're going to have a chip shot or a variation thereof. Just learn to hit a chip shot with 1 club. Learn to land it on the green, let it release and roll. Experiment with that. That's a 10-minute practice in itself. Can you hit more greens? Yes, you can. You got to go out to the targets on your range. If there's not enough, go out there and put some out yourself at various distances and challenge yourself. Can I hit this carry to this yardage? And imagine just a target circle. And then from hitting a fairway, it's not about length. It's just about accuracy. Can you imagine that fairway out in the driving range with 1 flag representing the right side, another flag representing the left side, and a tree at the end of the range, or another flag at the end of the range as your ultimate target you're trying to hit, and just role play how you're going to play any hole. You can break that down into 15 minutes putting, 10 minutes chipping, another 10 minutes max hitting targets, 10 minutes driving. You still have some time left over, and you don't have to do it all in 1 hour. You can do it in 10 or 15 or 20-minute chunks and get a whole lot more value out of how you practice, but it's based on the real numbers. And as I said earlier in the hour, those numbers don't change. It's just the proportion of that improvement gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And if you look at the best players in the world, they still use that kind of percentages as they practice. Not improve, as they practice. And that's how it all plays out.
Yeah, and I think, knowledge is everything. I think the more that you understand, the average player out there understands, and really the purpose of tonight, guys, obviously we're realistic. We know that people are not just going to go out tomorrow and break 90, listening to the discussion tonight. It would be great if they did. But the idea of the conversation is to give them some things and pause to think about things that maybe they hadn't considered before, give them a guiding light, if you will. But ultimately what we want them to do is to get in touch, and I'm going to give you guys a second here to do just that, but to get in touch with their local professional that they can work with and help put some of these plans and some of these points that we've talked about tonight into a little bit more perspective. Sometimes another set of eyes and even another set of ears, can help, for us listening to what the players are looking to do, what challenges they're looking to overcome, and then giving them some thoughts and some ideas and showing them, through our instruction on how they can accomplish some of these goals. So having said that, Peter, I'm going to let you go first. Let the folks know if they're interested in reaching out to you, how they can go about doing that.
Yeah, Ted, thanks for having me on again. John, always great to be with you. Always great to, learn from you as well. But if people want to reach out, my website is gogolfcoach.com. They can reach out on Instagram or at dailygolf.coach, I should say. And my name on Facebook and Twitter is Daily Golf Pro. That's about it, and thanks for having me again.
Always a pleasure, Peter, and thanks as always for your input. And I know all of your contact information. They can find it all of those various mediums that you just mentioned. John, what about you? How can the folks reach out?
Very simply, John Hughes Golf. If you can remember that, that's Twitter, that's Facebook, that's my website with the .com, that's Instagram, that's LinkedIn, you name it. It's johnhughesgolf.com or just at John Hughes Golf. Peter, always great to share some time with you here. I learn as much from you, more so than you think, and I appreciate the time. Ted, always an honor. I would challenge that person trying to break 90, just find one thing and make it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Make it simple, and watch how diligently, but yet consistently, your improvement will happen. Don't try to confuse too many things. Pick out what you think's the most important, whether it's based on the numbers or based on what you're seeing in your game. Find that one thing. Concentrate on it. Watch your scores go down. There's a reason for it. And if you do that over the course of a 30-day period, don't be surprised if you break 90. Yeah,
well said. Great way to end the segment. Well, thanks, guys, for doing your very first Coach's Corner of the 2018 season. I look forward to having you guys back many, many more times as the year progresses. Guys did a fantastic job as always. It makes me look good, number one, and makes my job a lot easier. So thanks, guys. Keep doing the great work, and I look forward to you guys on the panel next time here on the Coach's Corner panel. Thanks, and have a great weekend, guys.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, guys. You as well.
All right. That was my very special guests on the Coach's Corner panel tonight, John Hughes and Peter Egazarian, two great professionals. You can find them all over social media. You definitely want to reach out if you're looking to improve your game. And while I wait for my special guest to come on tonight, let me just remind everybody, of course, we are live every Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Central here on the blogtalkradio.com network. And if you just go to blogtalkradio.com /Golf Talk Live, or just type Golf Talk Live up in the search key, that will bring you to the main page. And during the live broadcast, of course, it will be front and center. But for some reason, if you can't join us live, not to worry. Anytime after the show has ended in about another hour's time, if you go to that link and just scroll down to the on-demand section, right at the top will be tonight's show, and then as you scroll down, you'll get all of the previously aired shows right back to the very beginning. We're in year 6. It's hard to believe. We've just started in our 6th season here on Golf Talk Live, and about our 4th season, I think, for Coach's Corner, and been an integral part. We've got a great group of golf professionals from all over the United States that come on the show each and every week as part of the panel discussions, and we sort of have a mixed bag, if you will, each week. So very, very seldomly do we ever have the same guys on each week. Sometimes if we have a no-show or somebody has to swap out, we might get a couple of them that may pop in back-to-back, but very, very seldom. I usually come on. Some of the guys like to come on once a month. Some of them, depending on their schedule, might only be able to do a few shows a year, but I appreciate them all. They've done a fantastic job over the last several years that we've done the Coach's Corner panel, and I get some great feedback. So we're going to keep going as long as you guys want to hear it. Also, let me remind you some other ways that you can tune into the program as well. If you want to, maybe you're somebody that likes to frequent iTunes or Stitcher or even TuneIn. If you go to iTunes, Stitcher, or TuneIn.com, and again type in Golf Talk Live, you can listen on any of those media platforms as well. So we're literally all over the place. You can find Golf Talk Live, and always enjoy doing these shows. My very special guest tonight, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him while I wait for him to come on board. My guest this evening is Jeremy Hutchins, and he is the owner and CEO of Golf Manhattan. And Jeremy grew up in St. Charles, Missouri, which is just outside St. Louis. He learned to golf at a pretty young age, but other sports such as basketball and baseball and even track sort of dominated his time. So he never did have the opportunity to play competitive golf, but nevertheless did take it up pretty young. He did, as he finished college, he became more and more obsessed with the game and started trying to get better over time, as we all do. And over the last few years, as he explored a career in custom menswear, he toyed with the idea of teaching golf as sort of a side venture, if you will. And in October, this past October, he came across Golf Manhattan and came to find out that it was in a struggling business in need of some change and need of some fresh investment and need of a new owner. So he saw a huge opportunity, and due to the potential of the business and especially in a growing market, he just decided to take a leap of faith and has had several strong months and has really enjoyed the challenges associated with running the business as well as challenges of teaching the lessons. So we're going to bring out Jeremy here in just a moment. As I said, I'm just waiting for him to come on board. But it's very interesting. It's an indoor facility, obviously, and we'll talk a little bit more about that and some other things and what he has to offer. It's not just about going in and taking lessons and hitting golf shots. There's a little bit more to it, so we'll talk to him as well. Don't forget to, again, tune in each week from 6 to 8 Central here on the Golf Talk Live show, which is featured on blogtalkradio.com and also on iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn.com. Also on Tuesday mornings on the same network, blogtalkradio.com, and also the other platforms that I just mentioned. You can also get me Tuesday mornings from 9 to 10 with my co-host, LPGA professional Cindy Miller, on the Women of Golf show, another great show that we feature and is geared more to the women's market. And it's every Tuesday morning on blogtalkradio.com. And you can find that from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on those social media platforms. And we've got some great guests coming up as well on that program. And that was a show that we started. We're actually in Season 5 for the Women of Golf. I started, of course, Golf Talk Live just 6 years ago. And about a year after that, I decided that I wanted to have a show as well that sort of was more tailored to the women's market, just because there really wasn't a lot out there at that time. There's certainly been more programs coming forth since then, but through some conversations with Cindy Miller she found the concept very interesting and decided to come on board. And we've been doing I think a great job in showcasing some of the very highly talented, not only women golf professionals in the playing side of things, but also some great business professionals as well in all areas of the golf industry. And we're going to keep doing that. We're going to keep mixing things up. And one of the things that we're going to do this year, and I kind of stole it from the Coach's Corner idea with a little bit of a twist, but every third Tuesday beginning this month, which will be, I believe, is the 20th of March. I believe that's the Tuesday. We're going to be featuring a panel discussion. And so we're going to test the waters, if you will, on the women's show. And every third Tuesday of the month, we're going to have a great panel assembled in addition to Cindy and I. And we're going to have some interesting topics that obviously important to our women golfers out there and professionals, and just anybody can really obviously tune in, but we're really trying to target that market. I think it's a very fast and growing market, and has been for the last several years. I think the golf industry has finally recognized the fact that the women's market is fast. In fact, it's I believe it's the ages 14 to early 30s, if I'm not mistaken, is the fastest growing and the biggest market in the golf industry every year for the last several years. So they're starting to realize that young women and women of all ages really are wanting and have a desire to take up golf or get back into golf, if you will. So we'll see what happens. And Cindy and I, as I said, are going to keep working through that program each and every year. And we're going to try with some panel discussions this year and see how that goes. And if we find that it continues to develop, then we may add some more panel discussions throughout some of the other shows. But we're going to test the waters this year by doing every third Tuesday of the month, beginning March 20th, I believe. And we've got a great panel lined up for that date. And I'll tell you a little bit more as we get closer about that. But as I said, I'm just waiting for Jeremy Hutchins, the owner and CEO of Golf Manhattan, just to come on board. And once he does, then we'll get into the discussion. And just again, keep in mind for all of the listeners out there that have been faithfully tuning in, I want to thank you very much for doing so. You've helped to make the show really grow, and there's been a lot of great support for it. All right, I see my very special guest is ready to come on board, so let me welcome my very special guest this evening on Golf Talk Live, Jeremy Hutchins, the owner and CEO of Golf Manhattan. Jeremy,
hey, Ted,
welcome
how are
to
you?
the show.
Thank you very much for having
me. I'm doing very well. Jeremy, I've already not a problem. I've already taken the liberty of letting the folks know a little bit about your background and that, so we'll just jump right into our discussion tonight. I know you're probably been having a busy day today, so you're probably relieved to get a little bit of time off and just sit back and relax. So let's just take the next little while and have a great conversation. I talked a little bit about you personally and sort of how you got into golf and your interest in that, and obviously your recent investment into Golf Manhattan. But for those that maybe aren't familiar with what Golf Manhattan is, just explain a little bit about your business and where it's located.
Sure, and thanks for giving everybody a little background. We are an indoor golf simulator facility, so private room simulators, meaning real clubs, real balls into a screen, simulated results shown on screen. We have 3 private rooms, a bar space in the middle, so it's a simulator facility / social facility, so sports bar essentially surrounding the activity of golf. And we're located right in Midtown Manhattan, which is kind of nestled between Bryant Park and Times Square. So we're on 39th Street, if anybody's familiar with the city, just west of 6th Avenue. So kind of right in the hub of transportation, super convenient location, up in an office building in what was designed as an office space, but built out by the previous ownership into this wonderful golf oasis in the city.
And let me tell you, folks, I know there's a lot of, for those listeners tuning in tonight, especially up in the Northeast, that are, have been sort of battening down the hatches here recently with all of the storms going through. I know a lot of them have been itching to get out in the golf course, and it's not quite quite warm enough to do that for most of you up there. So, and not everybody has the luxury or the time to venture on south where I am. So what a great opportunity for them to get out and tune up their game a little bit and in a social environment. Let's talk about the business a little bit first, Jeremy, and then I know that there's some things that you want to talk about specifically. But
Sure.
First off, tell us about, you've told us a little bit about the setup of the facility. What are the business hours that it's open for?
So currently we're open from 8:30 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. And the only day that changes is Sunday, when we close at 9 instead of 10. So we kind of have a little bit of traffic coming in before work, guys that just want to get some swings in almost as a substitute to go into the gym a couple days a week. And then obviously we're open for the after work crowd to come in and have a couple beers and either just get swings by themselves and work on some stuff after work, or have a little social environment, play a match against their buddies, whatever the case is.
Right. Now you also, because I've obviously, we've talked before this the show tonight, and then obviously I've had the opportunity to visit your website several times, so I've got a little bit of background. I know that in addition to the golf simulation, that you also offer lessons. Tell us a little bit about that.
That's correct. So that's actually how I got into this business in the first place. I was selling custom suits full time, and had in mind that was going to be a career, at least for the foreseeable future, but couldn't get the itch that golf created out of my head, and couldn't figure out a way to scratch it, and realized that kind of teaching was the part of selling suits that I liked, teaching guys why their clothes should look the way they should, and what makes them look good in a suit, and why, and how fabrics work. And that just bled into my interest and desire to teach golf lessons, because I was at the time about a 6 handicap, and I'm down closer to 4 now, so we're getting closer and closer to scratch as we go. But I wanted to teach lessons, so I found this place online, came in for a visit, ended up having some kind of built up the conversations with the previous owner to the point where he kind of let me know where the business was, what the opportunity was, the fact that he was looking for an exit strategy, and everything worked out timing-wise. But to make a short answer long, I wanted to teach golf lessons, which is what got me here. So I started teaching lessons immediately, and now I've hired my assistant manager, who's also an aspiring pro. So he's now giving lessons as well.
Right.
And then we bring in a freelance, more of an independent contractor guy who is John Manning, and teaches up at a range in Westchester, which is north of the city.
Okay.
Quote unquote full time, but then he comes down for anywhere from 3 to 12 or 15 lessons a week, depending on the week. So we do have 3 different options for you to get lessons, and I won't say it's the biggest part of the business, but it's a huge service to be able to offer for the people who want to get better.
Yeah, and that's, again, obviously you're going to get players or folks out there that want to sort of maintain what they've already got. But then you've also got some folks that, they've been itching to get back out. They know they need a little bit of a tune-up and a little bit of help to get the spark going for the new season out there. And as I said earlier, it's not quite ready to get out there and play yet. You still got a few winter storms, I think, left brewing up there. So this is a great opportunity
I'm sure
to come in and work with some work with some professionals and take some lessons. But in addition to the practicing and taking lessons, there's also a social aspect to it. So again, talk a little bit about that. You're trying to create a social thing. You mentioned a little earlier, it's kind of like going to a gym in a sense, that you're getting a chance to work on something that's important to you, but you're also getting a chance to connect with others.
Yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy in the way the business is set up from a clientele perspective because of that. So the first half of the day is basically people treating it like a gym, which is awesome to be able to provide that private room setup, come in, change clothes. Like I have this one guy who's been in probably half a dozen times in the last 2 weeks, and it legitimately is his substitute for the gym. So he brings his gym bag, changes into a T-shirt and shorts, sweats for an hour, taking 150 swings, and then changes back into his work clothes and goes back to work. So it's his respite, his exercise, his kind of get away from the office. But then at about anywhere around 4 o'clock during the week, it kind of switches over, and that's when the crowd starts ordering beer. So it's the guys who are now leaving work. And like I said, it's anywhere from a threesome playing a social match against each other up to I have an individual in one of the other simulators right now who specifically requested the cameras because this is his after-work training time. So he's working on the stuff that he's taken lessons to improve and wanted the cameras to give himself some feedback. And then on the weekends especially, so that weeknight crowd then transitions to the weekends where it's threesomes, foursomes, and more, booking out the private room to have for 3 or 4 hours. So it's almost like the what I've compared it to, Ted, is the best bowling alley you could ever imagine because it's golf instead of bowling.
Right.
But it has that sort of, you get the space. Not everybody's going to be good at the game necessarily. It's fun to just be around it, and even the people who don't want to play can still sit and have a couple drinks and be a part of the social atmosphere. And then all of that kind of comes together in our private event business as well. So the other big, not only from a business perspective, revenue driver, but also a big way to include more people in the game via this vehicle, for lack of a better word, is our social events from the corporate side. So, you know, a classic corporate happy hour where you run up a $2,000 bar tab and get everybody drunk in an hour and a half, and then you see them the next day at work. We try and build some of that into this business where we can offer you that same thing, but then you also get 3 different golf courses to play in our simulators, or a long drive contest in one room, a closest to the pin contest in the next room, and the 3 guys who care more than anybody else about golf can go play a match in the other room. So it's a really cool way to have a little 20, 25-person event as well. And all of those things certainly work in conjunction to build a pretty well-rounded client.
Well, and what makes it kind of unique, Jeremy, as well, is obviously you've got some of your more hardcore golfers that want to take advantage maybe early in the morning or even right after work that want to get out there and work on the game. But then you've also got, as you said, your corporate approach to it, where maybe they just want to go out and have fun. They don't want to just hit the normal bar scene. They want to do something different. But maybe some of the participants aren't necessarily any great golfer, but they can still have some fun doing it, and maybe get a little bit of bitten by the bug, if you will, that so many of us do over time. You hit a few shots and it gets some good results, and you think, hey, maybe I can give this a try in real sense, and so it might roll into some lessons. But it sounds like a great opportunity for a lot of really a broad spectrum. As you said, it's sort of a modern-day bowling alley, if you will, except for you're using golf. And I remember growing up, I was sort of in the area when bowling alleys were extremely popular, and not saying they're not a little bit now, but and that was something that we enjoyed doing, and sometimes we did well, and other times we didn't. But it was a social thing. Now,
that's
you're
exactly
doing some very
right,
interesting things. Right. You're doing some interesting things with Golf Manhattan to really, obviously, it's new in your hands, but to grow the business online with its content and so forth. So tell us some other things that you try to do. How do you try to get the word out there? Obviously, because you're up in an office building, you and I have talked about this before, and anybody that is familiar with Manhattan knows that sometimes signage, there's restrictions and things like that. How do you get the word out there to let the folks know, first off, that you're there and where you're located and how they can get involved? How do you aggressively sort of market without having to spend a lot?
It's a really good question, and obviously the biggest challenge we face, like you said, because unfortunately the landlord is pretty strict about what I can and can't put on the front of our building, and it's
True.
basically zero.
Right.
So we're battling the awareness game, which is the whole part. Once people know about it, so my first challenge to tackle, I'll go back to answer the question, but my first challenge to tackle was giving a better level of service. So the big weakness with previous ownership and why the business kind of dipped and ducked and made its way to where it was when I got to come in and buy it is that the customer service had suffered and had suffered for a long time because I think the focus was just not there on people having the best time they could in here for the 2 hours that they're here. Because at the end of the day, as much awareness as I get, if I can get the people in here to tell their 3 friends that it was fun, then that's a bigger win than however much money I'm going to spend on online advertising. So now the flip side and the second piece of that is combining that with driving awareness other ways. So since I can't put signs out front, I'm sort of driven either to the street corner to be the guy with a sandwich board handing out coupons and menus, which we've all seen in New York if you've been around a little bit. And my assistant manager and I spent an afternoon last week in Bryant Park with our matching branded T-shirts on, handing out freebie cards to try and get some walk-in sort of traffic. And it was super productive. We got to hand out quite a bit, generated a little buzz, took a couple photos while we were outside. It all worked out. So it's things like that where if I can build 3 hours into a day where I go hand out cards, I'm perfectly willing and not above that in any way. Now, the online piece, which you briefly mentioned, is the bigger component. Right. But without a huge marketing budget, there has to be some level of creativity there. And the biggest thing that I can say we're trying to implement, and even within the last couple weeks trying to implement, is just turning a camera on to record things that we're doing. And that's anywhere from unboxing office supplies, which is part of the business, to stocking a beer fridge, which is part of the business, to meeting and greeting clients, to cleaning up afterward, to taking business phone calls, to negotiating contracts, to, the showing that behind the scenes to some degree is a useful tool, and I think will drive some of the engagement and attachment to us as a brand. So if they get to see the crap that we're doing to get this business moving in the right direction, they're more attached to the results a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, when it's grown and we have multiple locations. And man, we watched the videos back when Jeremy was taking out the trash himself and that sort of idea. So even that simple stuff of just showing some behind the scenes is a way that we're going to try and drive some engagement at least. But then we're also going to put plenty of golf content out as well. So that's going to be myself and Kyle, who's my assistant manager guy, us recording as many golf-centric things. So that's not just tips, although that's going to be a big part of it. A grip tip here, a swing thought here. This week we finally implemented and started Tip Tuesdays. So we're going to have Swing Tip Tuesdays where we just put out a video a week with some sort of thought. And if all goes well, we'll turn Tip Tuesdays into Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays also if we can get enough videos recorded and chopped up. So basically we're just trying sort of any means necessary at this point. We're at the stage where throwing as much stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks and pivoting as quickly as possible when something doesn't work to just get eyeballs on our brand, meaning the biggest review we have when people come in here is, oh, this place is awesome. I didn't even know it was here. So it's just getting those people to have seen a video online to know that we're here, if that makes sense.
No, that's perfect. What's interesting, Jeremy, is this, again, I've been on your website a number of times, and, one of the things I like about it is you've kept it very simple. You give the key information that's obviously critical of, when you're open, what services you offer. But there's, one of the things that unfortunately with today's market is, and you know this, especially being, you're obviously a little bit younger than I am. In today's market, people are very time restrained. They don't have a lot of time for things, and they don't want to be on a site where they've got to navigate around. And there's a lot of, clutter and things like that. You've kept it very streamlined. You get right to the point, what the service is, what's available, at your location, and and it's very engaging that way. And that's what people want. They just know, what is it? What's Golf Manhattan? What do you got to offer? And, where are you located? That sort of thing. And then obviously I know you're going to throw a few other things up as you go along. But the other thing that you pointed out just a moment ago, and which I think is good to lead into next, is you obviously have to wear many hats as an owner of a business. And you've got quite a few different hats. Talk a little bit about that. You mentioned some of it, but talk a little bit about, why that's important to you. What's the message that you want to send out to the people that are, going to come to Golf Manhattan?
That's another good point and a good question. It's a really awesome challenge. So I've worked for someone else for all of my life. Like you said, I'm younger than some and not as young as some of the other people just starting out, but I've always tried to find a job where someone would pay me for things that I thought I was good at. And this is a brand new opportunity where I get to steer the ship. And that means steer the ship in all the ways that the ship needs to be steered. So that certainly requires me to wear many hats. But so far I'm really enjoying the challenge of it because it's learning things I didn't even know were a part of the business.
Right.
It's doing super quick homework to have the answers the next day when I have to jump on a call with someone that I didn't know I was going to have to jump on a call with. And it's doing the marketing side of things and figuring out an approach to get more eyeballs. And it's really neat. So the hats I wear break down to, it's hard to put a finite list on it, but especially with me teaching, that's just an added bit in there that's in addition to all the things I need to do to run the business. So I'm the general manager of our space. So that means I'm in charge of hiring and firing and training and staffing and procedures and leadership within the space. So how we clean and where the trash goes and how much beer we have in the fridge and how we kick people out of their rooms when it's time to leave, all the way up to and including higher level meetings to make sure that my assistant manager is communicating the right way with our staff members so that we're delivering the same message. So that general managership kind of covers day-to-day operations, but then obviously the growing the business part is another big one. So my biggest recent development on that front is making a deal with Marriott hotels. So if you stay at one of the two Marriott hotels that are on our block, there's a Residence Inn next door and a Courtyard across the street. Within the next couple months, you'll be able to pick your perks, which is a card they hand out to customers, where you get to select a couple options from this list. We're going to be one of those options. So Marriott customers will get a little discount for staying at the hotel to then come and use with us. So it's strategic partnerships like that while I'm figuring out the hiring, firing, and training of our staff, I also have to make those kind of higher level marketing strategic partnership decisions along the way. And then it's the business ownership administrative part that is probably the biggest challenge for me, just because I wasn't aware necessarily of all of the pieces that go into it. Not that I didn't have a general idea, but just on a day-to-day, I couldn't have told you how much my liability insurance was going to be for a space like this based on the activity that we're offering, based on the wording that we put in confirmation emails to customers, so that it's the running a business from the legal administrative side that's also been quite a big challenge. And then all of that sort of comes under the umbrella of branding and identity and putting a face on a thing that we can grow, right? So I'm with the videos starting this week especially, I'm basically just going to attach my face to the brand as much as possible and see how that goes for the time being, and kind of be the voice and the driving factor publicly. And if we get some pushback and that doesn't work, or I don't have time and we have to pivot and change that approach, we will. But it's been really cool having to wear all those different hats and figure out how to do things and when to do them and how hard to push people and what I can negotiate and what I can't. And I'll tell a really quick story from a staffing perspective. I had to let an individual go a couple weeks ago just because it wasn't a good fit and there were some work performance issues. Just it's a staff member that wasn't a good fit. Didn't work. So I let her go.
Right.
And it turned into an online fiasco based on starting to post reviews in public places, starting to talk some trash in many different ways publicly. And so for a day and a half, I had to worry about what's the quickest way to get Yelp reviews taken down and how to get Facebook posts deleted and YouTube comments removed because they're just personal and hurt. So it's cool, getting to solve those challenges when you can look back and have done it. But obviously during the challenge, it's not always the most fun thing, except you learn and grow and you have that hat to wear now,
Yeah, and that's part of the learning. When you're a business owner like that, those are what we classify as the nuisance tasks that all
exactly
employers have to go through, and that's essentially what it is. I just want to go back just real quickly just to make a comment about what you said about your new relationship with the Marriott. There are so many great. I think that's fantastic, and this is really what it takes to become successful with any business is to reach out, especially to a brand, as successful as the Marriott, to be able to partner with them and say, we've got something here to offer your guests. And, obviously they get, in addition to, your regular tourist and vacationers coming to New York, I'm sure get a lot of business people that come in throughout the season. And knowing that you're on the list, I guarantee there's going to be a lot of golfers that may come into the area that want to play and will bring their clubs and whatnot, to play regularly out in some of the courses in New York. But it's nice to be able to know that your facility is close by and that they get some perks there as well. So I think it's a great pairing, and I can see lots of beneficial things coming out of that.
Exactly.
And
on
too,
that,
I think,
On that note, real quick, the biggest thing is when I've been trying to drive those partnerships in any way, it's just thinking about if I have something to offer, what value can I provide to you to maybe get something back? But the key is for me not to expect much, and I've realized mostly through the business mentors I've had through the books and videos and people I've watched and learned from and that sort of thing, but it's being able to just provide value to someone else, and if you can do that as many times as possible, the rewards will come back around even if you don't necessarily ask for them. And then if you have enough of those leverage relationships, when you do need to ask for something, people are willing to help. So that's the tact I'm taking.
Well, yeah, and that's an excellent point that you raise, and just to add a little bit to that, one of the things that I think, Jeremy, again, I know this is fairly new for you, and it's a learning curve, and there's a lot of exciting times ahead. I think the one thing that you touched on that's extremely important earlier on is about the customer service and providing value for the service that you're offering and the product that you're offering. And I think that when people see that that's an important and integral part of your business. I mean, anybody can open up a shop and open up a store and say, here I am, but then not have very good support system put in place. And, even if you partner, whether it be with the Marriott or some other, business in Manhattan, once their customers see that they're not only getting value, but they're getting treated with dignity and respect, just the word of mouth alone to your business is going to be more than anything likely that other business could have offered you anyway. So just the fact that they're opening you up to their potential customers or existing customers is going to be a great opportunity for you down the road. And the fact that you recognize that I want to make sure that my customers that are coming in, wherever I get them from, are not only going to have an enjoyable experience, but are going to feel value when they come here and are going to be treated, as I said, with dignity and respect. That any amount of marketing dollars you could put out there, because anybody can throw a sign up or what have you, but if they can't back it up, that circulates just as quickly, and you end up dealing with those other issues that I mentioned earlier. So,
you got it. That's exactly right.
Jeremy, one of the questions I guess that one of the questions that I think a lot of people ask in the golf industry, I mean, I've been in the golf industry for a long time, is what's the future of the game? What do you see? What role do you see a facility like yours is going to play in helping the future of the game?
So the biggest way to answer that question is sort of to throw back to the point we were making earlier about comparing it to a bowling alley and that sort of thing. It's I can't remember what phrase you said a few minutes ago, but basically just getting that itch started with somebody new. So take enough swings and hit a couple balls, and you realize that it's really rewarding when they go the direction you want them to, and you make solid contact and understand why that feels the way it does and come back for more sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So I think the way a facility like this can grow the game is through getting those people who would have never approached it in a, again, quote unquote, traditional manner to see the game as something that they can wrap their head around. Because golf in general, and this is the sad part of golf, is that it's super unapproachable for a variety of reasons. Space,
right. Sure.
Time, equipment needed, not to mention the general air and pushback of country club culture and why and how people don't want to be a part of that or feel like they can't, and it becomes there's a lot of reasons that golf is unapproachable. And so how do we get people to see it as something that they can get their hands on, participate in, be a part of? I think it's through a kind of toned down, less normal golf experience, if you will. Make it more fun, make it entertainment-based. It's really what Topgolf is doing, but in even a higher level way. I want to sort of drive the same sort of thing, but with an even better golf experience. So you can actually play a real simulated course. What does it look like when I have to fly a ball over water? Sure, it's not a real lake in front of you, but just to have the mental exercise of can I hit this out of this sand trap high enough so that it gets over the lip and lands on the green, and that sort of thing, where people get the reward of hitting those good shots that, for those of us who have played golf for any amount of time, that feeling of that shot you can remember from 3 years ago in that one round when you shot the round of your life. You remember the shots that got you there because of the reward of hitting a good shot and having it land where you wanted to and roll out the way you thought it would, or miss the tree because you had to hug the side of the foot, et cetera, et cetera. So if we can give that to people in a way that they can more easily approach, then I think everybody wins. Mm-hmm. And it will then get them outside on a golf course at some point in the future, right? If they can participate in here, realize it's a thing that they can do, and they don't have to be the best at, but it's still fun, and it can still be social, and it can still, and another big part is it can still benefit a career, because that's still a big part that golf plays in taking clients to a golf course to and from, and having events like that are benefiting people professionally, right? Deals are made on golf courses.
Right.
And that's
right, exactly.
I think that's the role that it plays, not to mention the benefit of having it be year round, wrapped into all of that. So not only can we hopefully make it more approachable, but also it's just more accessible in a city where golf is super inconvenient, and in a city that has a really limited golf season. So all of those things lead to us hopefully being able to get some new people in the door, grow the game a little bit. And so the craziest part, and we'll go, we won't stay on this for very long, but I also truly believe that within my lifetime, most likely, I think this sort of simulated, electronic-based, if not all the way to a VR-based experience, will be a pretty popular version of golf for people to watch. So I think there will be some competition based around this sort of electronic-based game. I think that because the biggest complaint golf has now is, should we make courses longer and longer and longer, or should we make the golf ball go shorter? We're running out of space. We can't build tee boxes, etc. not to mention the pushback on, do we need all that space for golf courses when those could be public parks for people to enjoy? All of that solved by moving the game inside, building a little stadium around a simulated golf experience, but that's way down the road. I don't know how far, but those are my thoughts.
No, I think you're right in a lot of respects. I think the traditions of the game will always be there. It's interesting, some of the things that you mentioned. I recently was watching on the Golf Channel an interview with that David Faraday had done with one of the participants was I can't think of it now.
The main
one I'm thinking of is Jack Nicklaus. Yes.
Yeah, it was with Ricky and Jack Nicklaus, and then they had the tennis guy on there as well. Yeah. Right.
And the point I was getting at was, Nicklaus made the point about the game that there were some things that he felt, and it wasn't just about scaling the ball back, but it was about making it accessible to more people. Here's somebody that's played some of the best golf courses around the world. Certainly money is not an issue for him, but he recognizes the fact that the sport is still very expensive and it's not accessible to everybody. And, he did also say, too, that, golf courses have gotten longer and longer because the technology in golf balls and equipment has made it, not that they're obsolete, the regular courses that have been out there for years, but it's made it easier and easier. But I think you're right in what you're saying about the indoor facilities. I think as newer people get drawn to golf, let me back up real quick here. One of the criticisms that I have with golf is the impression through very aggressive marketing that we see, and I'm not trying to criticize the Golf Channel, or the PGA Tour or LPGA or anything like that, but is the image that most people see is a professional level. We don't see a lot of promoting of, certainly within the golf industry, but outside to the general public, a lot of amateur golf or everyday golfers. We see, the Ricky Fowlers and the Rory McIlroys and the Michelle Wees and so on and so forth, and the Nicklauses that have played. And that's most people's perception that don't know anything about golf. That's what they see, is they see these professionals. So they think that's what golf is. Well, I'm never going to be a professional. And I think as the younger generations come up, like yourself, and offer alternative solutions, and that doesn't mean that they may not get out in the golf course someday, but offer things like what you're offering with Golf Manhattan, that's bringing a whole new generation of people to the game that maybe didn't realize that, hey, this is something for me. And I think what you were talking about a few moments ago, I can see that happening, and it's definitely not going to happen probably in my lifetime. It may happen in yours, but if not, certainly the next generation. But you are right. I think people are changing. I think environmentally, as we look at some of the challenges that we face on this planet, I certainly love. I think there's plenty of golf courses now, and I'm not trying to criticize people that are out there, developing new opportunities. But I think there's going to be a challenge for space, and I think that the industry has to look at other options. And I think what you're offering here in Golf Manhattan is something that needs to give serious consideration to. What are your thoughts?
Well, I appreciate that just as a plug, because I certainly agree people should give it a shot in this setting or any other setting, because I love the game. But I agree with a lot of that, and especially with the points that Jack Nicklaus was making on that interview along those same lines. It really boils down to approachability. And even in I was just thinking while you were talking about that, in terms of approachability, it's not just the space and the time and now they're hitting the ball too far. It's what you said, where people view, because of the way it's presented, golf as a professional level game, and there's not a lot of in between them being people who don't play at all and this level that we see on TV of, oh, you have to be that to play golf. Not to mention the part of
right.
You have to know what to wear to play golf. You have to have the right stuff to play. Like, all of that leads to that same idea of, I don't have the right pants, I don't have the right shirt, I certainly don't hit the ball like Rory McIlroy, so I'm just not going to do it. which is the unfortunate part of not getting people in the door, right?
Yeah, and let me just add something real quick here, Jeremy, and then we'll move on. Is,
For
you
sure.
know, if you take tennis as an example, I grew up in golf. You know, my father taught me when I was, knee-high to a grasshopper. So I'm familiar with what there is to do and out there in golf from a playing standpoint to a teaching standpoint and so on and so forth. But tennis as an example, I can go out and I can buy a $15 tennis racket and a sleeve of tennis balls. I don't even have to go out on a tennis court. I can just hit the ball against a wall, and it's cost me maybe $20. That's not as easily available in the golfing industry because I can certainly go to a driving range and I can borrow a golf club and I can certainly hit some golf balls, but I can't really get an appreciation for the game as such. Whereas tennis and some of these other sports, it's much more accessible. And I think that was the point that Nicholas was trying to get across, is that golf needs to be more accessible to the masses. We need to quit going after, all of the elite players and that sort of thing, and start going after the people that normally wouldn't have access, because that's what's truly going to grow the game. So I think what you're offering with Golf Manhattan gives that, because it's something that's affordable. It's something that they don't have to drive too far. They can hop on, their local transit if they want, or walk, depending on how close they are. Or if they're traveling and staying at one of the Marriotts and perhaps maybe others that you partner with in the road, they can just come in and use that as a perk or as an option. So I like what you're doing there, Jeremy. It sounds like you've got a great plan, and I see some great things happening with the business as it continues to grow. Any final thoughts? I can't believe this hour is already just about blown away. So it's been very interesting to learn more about your business, and I really like what you're doing there. Any final thoughts that you want to make? And then just, again, very quickly let the folks know how they can reach out and learn more about Golf Manhattan.
Yeah, absolutely. Final thoughts, I'll keep kind of brief because I feel like we have covered a lot, and that certainly went by faster than I thought it was going to. It doesn't seem like it's been that long. That's what I get for coming to the call late, though, Ted. So it makes it seem faster when you show up late. I just am really excited for the future of not only the business, but just golf as a whole, golf as an entertainment vehicle. I'm excited about where we're headed. I'm excited about being able to lead us as a brand and change even some of the stuff in terms of what people wear to play the game and how they look to play the game and how they think about the game, and not to mention the approachability like we talked about and getting people into it and learning and that sort of thing. So I won't stay on my soapbox about the future of technology and virtual reality golf and all of that stuff. But what I will say is your idea of where to get in touch with us. So like I said, Golf Manhattan is on 39th Street in between 6th Avenue and Broadway. And the closest trains to us, for those of you that are actually in the city coming, are the BD to Bryant Park or the NQRW to Times Square. So those are your public transportation options, but then all of the commuters outside the city can get to us pretty quickly via Port Authority Bus Terminal, Grand Central train station, or Penn Station. We're pretty centrally located within all of those. And then electronically, where to find us, everything is basically Golf Manhattan. So on Instagram, which is where we're pushing the most content, I will say, is going to be Golf Manhattan. No symbols or anything, just at Golf Manhattan. Same on Twitter. And then you can find us on Facebook. Again, just search Golf Manhattan. And as Ted said earlier, the information is pretty sleek and simple, but the website is golfmanhattan.com. Again, keeping it simple.
Yeah, I think sometimes that's the best way. Go ahead. Yep. And
then the only thing I was going to add is we do offer booking online, so you can go straight from that website to our booking page and make a tee time that way, or you can call us and we'll make you a tee time over the phone. Perfect. And I know all your contact information is very readily available on the website, and I know you've got some other things coming out in the future, so definitely keep me posted, and I'll
make the listeners aware of that. Well, Jeremy, I want to thank you for coming on Golf Talk Live. It's been a lot of fun. I enjoyed learning more about your business and exposing it to my audience. And I know a lot of them that travel, and many of them, I'm sure, travel to New York. They've got a place that they can go and check out and not just practice their golf game, but maybe get involved in little social activities as well. But I see some great things with Golf Manhattan, and I want to wish you much continued success. And please stay in touch, and I look forward to having you come back on as things continue to grow and build and come back on the show again.
Ted, I definitely will, and thank you for your time and having me on, and thanks to all your listeners for letting me show up 5 minutes late and still be a part of this and share some of the behind the scenes as well as where we're headed. I really appreciate the invite, and I will certainly keep you posted on where things go and what we're offering in the future.
Sounds good. Well, Jeremy, thank you again for coming on Golf Talk Live tonight. I know my audience will enjoy and has enjoyed listening to the show. And keep up the great work. And I look forward to having you come back and join me again in the future.
That sounds great, Ted. Thank you, sir.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. That was my very special guest, Jeremy Hutchins, the CEO and owner of Golf Manhattan. And it's located on the west side of Manhattan between Penn Station and Times Square. And as he pointed out several times, it's an indoor golf facility and bar that offers hourly rentals, private events, and lessons. And it's really perfect for year-round training and as well entertaining. So he's making it fun there. It's not just about getting down to hardcore golf, but it's there to have some fun as well. So definitely go to their website, golfmanhattan.com, and you can get all the information there and certainly check out through the other social media platforms as well. I want to take this opportunity again to just thank the guys on the Coach's Corner panel, John Hughes and Peter Egazarian, earlier on for doing a fantastic job as always, guys. I appreciate all your efforts and hard work, and I thank you for joining me again on the panel discussions again this year for the season. I know they're going to be back many, many more times throughout the year, so you definitely want to tune in for those guys. I want to take this opportunity as well to thank all of the listeners worldwide for faithfully tuning into Golf Talk Live each and every week. And as I say all the time, and I mean this sincerely, that I do have a great amount of pleasure and enjoyment of having a number of highly talented coaches, teaching pros, authors, and entrepreneurs like Jeremy, my guest tonight, stop by the show. And it's really through their participation and guest appearances that have helped to make Golf Talk Live a first-class show. So on that note, I'm going to close things off. Thanks again to my guests. I will be back on Tuesday with my co-host, LPGA professional Cindy Miller, on the Women of Golf show here on the blogtalkradio.com network. So make sure you join us this Tuesday from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on this network. And then again next Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central on blogtalkradio.com as well, where I will have another Coach's Corner panel and another interesting guest joining me next week. So on that note, thanks everybody. Keep tuning in and keep spreading the word. I'm here to stay, so enjoy you guys faithfully tuning in each and every week. God bless everybody and have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week right here on Golf Talk Live.